If you've ever felt lost, stuck, or too broken to start again, this story will find you where you are. In a small town surrounded by golden fields and slow-turning winds lived a humble tailor named Arman. For years, he had been known as the man with the golden hands. He could take the dullest piece of cloth and turn it into something extraordinary. A dress that made someone feel beautiful, a suit that made someone believe in themselves again. His little shop sat on the corner of an old cobblestone street, a cozy space filled with sunlight, fabric rolls, and the rhythmic sound of his sewing machine. But that was before. Now the sign outside, Arman's threads of gold, hung crooked, half faded by dust and time. Inside, the once lively shop was silent. No sound of scissors, no customers, no laughter, only shadows and silence. A year ago, Arman's life had come undone. His wife, Lena, the light of his world and the reason behind his art, had fallen ill and passed away. After her death, something inside him shattered. He couldn't bring himself to sew anymore. He packed away his needles, covered his sewing machine, and told himself he was done. Done with the world, done with people, done with hope. Each day he sat behind the dusty window, staring blankly as villagers passed by. He'd whisper to himself, "What's the point of stitching clothes when I can't stitch back the pieces of my heart?" Weeks turned into months. The once cheerful customers stopped knocking, his friends stopped visiting, and the man who once brought beauty into others' lives could no longer see any in his own. But fate, as it always does, had other plans. One cold evening, as Arman was closing his shop early, the bell above the door jingled softly. An old woman stepped inside, her shawl torn, her face lined with years, but glowing with kindness. "Can you fix this for me, son?" she asked, holding out the frayed shawl. Arman sighed. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't sew anymore." She looked at him, studying his tired eyes. Then she smiled gently and said, "Then who will fix what's torn inside you, if not you?" Before he could respond, she placed the shawl on his table and quietly walked away. That night, Arman lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her words wouldn't leave him. He turned them over in his mind again and again. Who will fix what's torn inside you, if not you? And for the first time in a year, he looked toward his covered sewing machine. At dawn, Arman lit a candle. The faint golden glow filled the shop as he uncovered his sewing machine. He sat down, picked up his needle, his hand trembling slightly, and began stitching the old woman's shawl. The first stitch was shaky, the second uneven, but as the thread moved through the fabric, something inside him began to stir. Each pull of the needle felt like a heartbeat returning to life. When he finally finished, he held the shawl up against the light. It wasn't perfect, but it was whole again. He smiled faintly. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. The next day, he returned the shawl to the old woman who was waiting outside his shop. When she saw it repaired, she smiled warmly and said, "You see, my son? Sometimes fixing what's outside helps you remember how to fix what's within." From that day, Arman began working again, slowly, quietly, patiently. He started repairing old clothes for the villagers, a torn sleeve here, a ripped hem there. Word spread quickly. People began returning, not just for his stitching, but for his kindness, his listening ear, his calm presence. Still, the journey wasn't easy. Some days he broke more needles than he used. Some nights he'd stay awake, haunted by memories of Lena. He'd hear her laughter in the quiet and whisper, Am I doing this right, Lena? But every time he was close to giving up, he remembered that old woman's words, and something deeper inside him pushed forward. He realized that healing, like sewing, takes time. Thread by thread, stitch by stitch, tear by tear. One afternoon, a young boy brought in a torn school uniform. "Can you fix this? My father says it's useless now," the boy said shyly. Arman smiled. "If it can be stitched, it can be saved." As he worked, the boy watched in awe. "Do you fix everything, sir?" the boy asked. Arman chuckled. "Not everything, child, but I try." By the time the boy left, his smile was as bright as the mended shirt. And in that moment, Arman realized he wasn't just sewing fabric anymore. He was stitching hope into people's lives and into his own. One stormy evening, as thunder rolled across the sky, the doorbell of Arman's shop rang again. A little girl stood there, drenched from the rain, clutching a small broken doll. "Please," she said between tears, "can you fix her? She's my only friend." Arman took the doll gently from her hands. Its arm was torn off, its dress ripped, its face faded. He nodded softly. "Yes, little one, but you'll have to help me." Her eyes lit up through the tears. Together, they worked, Arman guiding her tiny hands as she held the doll still. He taught her how to thread the needle, how to pull the stitch carefully, how not to rush the process. When they finished, the doll looked almost new again. The little girl hugged it tightly, her face glowing with joy. Then she said something that stopped Arman cold. "Mama says broken things should be thrown away, but I think they just need someone to fix them." Arman froze. His hands trembled, but not from sadness this time. He felt something warm rise in his chest. A realization, a truth so simple, yet so profound. He looked at the girl, then around his shop, at the fabrics, the scissors, the thread, the light flickering across the window. Everything once broken, now whole again. He whispered softly, "When you start fixing your life, life starts stitching you back together." And that night, for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He sat beside his sewing machine, smiling as the rain tapped gently on the window. Outside, the sign that once hung crooked now swung proudly again. Arman's threads of gold. He had fixed it that morning. The lesson is simple. No tear is too deep, no life too ruined. Healing begins when you decide to pick up the thread and start again. Every stitch you make today is a step toward the life you were meant to live. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Because every soul deserves a second stitch of hope.